Okay, well, let's get started. Thank you everyone for being here. I know it's been an extremely hard week. Pretty wild when you go outside and it's 78 degrees and compared to what it was a week ago. So I'm glad you're here. I hope everyone, you and yours are safe and well. Um, so let's share the results of the poll. This is the White Bass Fishing Basics class, February 23rd, 2021. Okay. So, what's the White Bass Texas state record? If you picked 5.5 pounds, that is correct. That was caught in 1977. Pretty long record, pretty old record. I forgot where that was caught, but and we'll kind of come back to these as we go through the class. But white bass don't get very big. If you catch a 5.5 pounder, that's going to be pretty massive. White bass are in what freshwater fish family? They are part of the temperate bass family, or what we call true bass. And then number 3, what Texas river system is part of the white bass native range in Texas? That would be the Red River in North and Northeast Texas. They have been introduced and widely distributed throughout Texas. Okay, let's jump right in. A couple things about Zoom. We will ask everybody to stay muted. And if you would, if you are familiar or you're new to Zoom, I want to make sure that you're aware of a couple things. One being the mute area or the mute button. You can click on that if you need to unmute yourself. Sometimes when I know if I change microphones or I set my microphone down, it resets and then it unmutes. So if you need to mute yourself, that's where it's at. Click on the mute function there. The way it's going to work tonight, as far as questions and answers, questions will be added in the chat function. So if you want to find the chat function right now, click on that. A sidebar will open up. It's white, and you can drop your question into that chat bar. We will, depending on time, we will field questions. If there's any that are left over, I'll save those questions and I'll follow up with the answers. And then for the view on the top right here, this right there. So there's 2 types of views. There's a gallery view and a speaker view. You can change views. There's a speaker view and a gallery view. Click on it. I recommend that you have it in speaker view. And the way that works is it needs to be opposite of that. So if you want it to be in speaker view, it actually needs to say gallery view. So if you're not familiar with that function, you can go and click on that right now and just kind of get comfortable with how that looks. Okay. Feel like we're set. Okay, let's move forward here. Okay, here's our agenda tonight. It's going to be full, a lot of good info. And then a lot of this stuff is out there. I will send a follow-up email with resources, links to resources afterwards, and any follow-up questions. So don't feel like you have to furiously write notes throughout. You're welcome to, but we will follow up with the resources. Okay, introduction. So my name is Adam Comer. I'm Texas Parks and Wildlife Aquatic Education Training Specialist. My region is Central and South Texas. I have 2 other regional staff as part of the team. They are Kira Quam in North and West Texas, and Greg Akins in South and Gulf Coast of Texas. We work to recruit, train, and oversee the Texas Parks and Wildlife Angler Education Volunteer Program. We also facilitate and support angler at outreach events and classes like this. And then I'm also the statewide coordinator for the Tackle Lono program. All right, and I am very appreciative and very fortunate. We have a co-instructor today. I will pass it off to you, Bob.
Let me unmute. Yes, I've been fishing and mostly fly fishing most of my life, but have recently retired in 2019, so now I have more time to spend fishing, but unfortunately I find myself doing a lot of other things. But I've been working with Texas Parks and Wildlife for about 18 years now, doing actually a lot of fly fishing education instruction over in Athens. I became an area chief a year ago, which is basically someone that helps train other trainers to do fishing training and so on. So, and I've been kind of enjoying retirement for the last 2 years. So.
Thank you, Bob. And again, I really appreciate your help with this and support. I actually was on another class, a Angler Ed instructor class, where you can get certified like Bob and join a network of volunteers out there and lead outreach events and classes. And Bob was mentioning a lot about sand bass, so I thought, oh, I gotta get Bob on this class. So fun connections.
I live on a great lake, Richland Chambers, that is super for sand bass fishing. So mark that down on your list of lakes to visit.
And then we have our bouncer and moderator tonight. Heather, you want to say hello?
Hi, everyone. I'm Heather England. I'm the program assistant for the Angler Education Program at Texas Parks and Wildlife, and I'm just here to make sure things run smoothly tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. Really quick, I will send information out with the follow-up email, but the Texas Angler Education Program, it's a learn, fish, teach model. Bob is on the teach end. He became a certified Angler Ed volunteer instructor and as a fly fishing instructor as well. So he's out there providing instruction, supporting the sport, and so you can become a part of that as well. Okay, and this is the white bass. This is a just stunning painting I found online from Fish and Wildlife Service. So the white bass are part of the temperate bass family and or considered a true bass, unlike the false bass. That's a bad joke. But other black basses they're in the sunfish family, the centrarchids. So white bass are actually true bass. There are 3 other species in that family of temperate bass. One is striped bass or striper, and then we have the hybrid striped bass and the yellow bass. All the temperate bass species in Texas have these linear, these lateral lines. So very distinctive, these lateral lines that start at the head or the opercle flap and go all the way down to the caudal fin or tail. They also have this really distinguishing dorsal hump, and so it definitely, this looks like a big head right there. It goes right up very quickly on the temperate bass. They are deep-bodied, so they have a deep body look to them. Let me clear this off. We're going to talk about two things that two features that you can distinguish white bass from other temperate bass. One is their opercle flap. So the opercle flap or gill flap is right here, which I'm outlining. So the white bass have this point to it, and it's one point. It's right here. It's rigid. And so the striped bass have 2 points. The white bass will have one, right on their gill flap right here. Bob, do you find that true?
Really, I watch more for lateral lines going down sides. Okay. That is new to me, actually. Okay. When I look at a sand bass, I typically, they're not going to be much more than, I mean, a big one is 14 to 16 inches. Usually they're 12 to 14 inches long, and they've got the lateral lines going all the way down in here. Whereas the hybrid, well, you go into the hybrid, I'm sure, but they break up more. So. Yeah, the single point, that's great to know. What I do is, and what people may want to think about is that Texas Parks and Wildlife supplies you with a card that shows you the different fish. So because my grandkids come fishing, I keep one of those taped to my door on my dock so they can distinguish fish as they catch them. So it's kind of a neat little card that they give out. So.
Thank you. So I mentioned the point on the opercle flap. It has one single point compared to 2 on the striped bass, and then also the tooth patch. So the tooth patch. Let's move to that. So on your screen on the left is the white bass, and on the right is the striped bass. These can be found in your Texas Parks and Wildlife Outdoor Annual app. The white bass you see on the left has one distinct tooth patch. So it's on their tongue, and their tongue is set back a little bit. If you open up their mouth or you put your finger in, you can feel one tooth patch, compared to a striped bass or a striper has 2 distinct tooth patches. And I hope y'all can see that. It's a little blurry, but you can see here, it has, the white bass will have one complete tooth patch on the tongue, and then the striped bass will have 2 separate tooth patches on the tongue. And Bob, is that a way you?
Yeah, that's easy. Yeah, you put your finger in there and you can feel. Okay. We don't have striped bass on our lake. We have hybrids. Okay. But with the sand bass, you definitely can feel there's the one tooth patch in the center of the tongue. And the other thing you look at, if you look at those 2 pictures, you look at the striped bass versus the sand bass. The striped bass is a little sleeker body to it. Okay. So it's the other thing.
Compared to, and so Bob, you're saying the white bass are a little more deep bodied?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. Yes. And in fact, when you catch them, they use their body against you. That's what makes them so much fun to catch. I'll talk about that later, but yeah.
Okay, so some more about their habitat and feeding. So that is a fantastic catch. That's a beautiful white bass right there. And so their feeding habits. So juvenile or up to 2 years, they'll start off eating small crustaceans like crawfish and insect larvae. As they become adults, they're piscivores, so they're exclusively fish consumers. Typically the shad and small bait fish, and they feed primarily in schools throughout the year. Their habitat, they are considered a migratory open water fish. They spend most of their life in open water portions of reservoirs, and they prefer flowing water with clean gravel and rock and rapids and submerged rock banks during the spawning run. We will split up the fishing methods and equipment and in the spawning run, and then for the rest of the year, and we'll go over seasonal patterns as well. Bob had mentioned this, they don't They don't live very long, so they're quick growing, but they die off pretty quick. And they're not typically over 3.5 pounds. You remember the state record was
Exactly.
5.5 pounds or so.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but when they, I mean, they do multiply a lot. I mean, our lake, as I said earlier to you, we were talking, the guides come back with the limit almost every day with customers. So
wow. They're excellent table fare. I have never had white bass. Bob, have you had
Okay.
white bass before?
All right. So now here's the thing with white bass. If you like a little bit of fishy taste, then just fillet them and cook them. If you don't, when you fillet them, you'll find a red strip down the center. Cut that red stripe out. Okay. That takes that fishy taste away from it. My wife won't eat sand bass if I don't do that. So, but they're delicious actually. Yeah.
I'll see if I can find a nice resource as far as that goes.
Yeah, you'll see it when you fillet the fish. It's just a reddish stripe and it's very small, but you cut that out and that just makes the fish taste better when you cook it. I think it does. So
Do you tenderize it at all, or
not at all. No. Cook them just like you cook any other fish. If you like fried fish, just bread them and cook them. One of the things that I like to do, and I've done it for friends, and they're like, "Oh my God, no!" Is I coat them with mustard, and then bread them, and then cook them. The mustard does not come out as a taste, believe it or not, but it gives a little bit of, I don't know. It's just really good. It's not a mustardy taste at all when you do that.
I like mustard. It sounds
Yeah.
like a nice kind of coating, locks
Yeah,
in that
you
moisture.
just coat them with regular, just yellow mustard, and then bread them and fry them, and they're delicious.
Ooh, getting hungry.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Let's see. So here's this map. I thought it was interesting. This is off USGS. The native range of white bass starts up north near the Great Lakes, and then the tributaries of the Mississippi. So that big orange blot in the Midwest and North America and the Great Lakes. They've been widely introduced. They're very robust species. They're adaptable, and so you can see in the maroon the areas they've been introduced. And interestingly enough, they've been introduced. You can see in Puerto Rico, a small little area in Puerto Rico. So I wonder what that's about. But
my guess is to feed people.
Yeah. They seem to do quite well. And then a little bit of history of white bass in Texas. So prior to 1932, Caddo Lake on Cypress Bayou was the only place in Texas where white bass was known to occur in any official sense. In that year, the precursor to Texas Parks and Wildlife, the Texas Game Fish and Oyster Commission, that is a long name, took 13 brood fish and from Caddo, and they stocked it eventually in Old Lake Dallas, now part of Lake Louisville. And in 1938, they stocked whites in other lakes, Kemp, Buchanan, Medina, Eagle Mountain, Waco, and Wichita. So it seemed like they tried to spread them out a little bit, see what would work in different areas of Texas. Today, most of the Texas reservoirs support fishable populations of white bass. I have not. I was looking through the stocking reports. They're really not very common. I found one in the 1980s, and they're like at 100 fingerlings. So they're really not currently being stocked, or they're a self-sustaining population, it appears. So here's our current distribution. If you haven't been to the Fishes of Texas website, I highly encourage it. There's really great data on fish and highlights biodiversity in our state. So just a screenshot I took of their current distribution now in Texas. So really widely distributed throughout Texas.
So the question I have is how'd they get the name sand bass? I'm not sure anybody knows that, because when I lived back, I'm from New York. We used to have white bass up there. When I came here, they called them sand bass. And so it's kind of interesting. I don't know if you know that, Adam, or not. I don't know it. I was just curious. Something that maybe people could Google up and see why they're called sand bass versus white bass.
you know, I would be curious too, because I love all the different colloquial names,
Exactly.
common names of fish. If anybody knows or has an idea, go ahead and put that in the chat. I'd be curious. Just like they seem to call sunfish perch here.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then in other places like East Coast, they call them brim. So
Well, yeah. Bluegills or sunfish or brim, and here it's perch. Yeah.
It's interesting. So I wonder if it's a regional thing. I would be curious to hear where that came from as well. So if anybody knows, feel free to throw that in the chat.
Yeah. We're not all
Yeah.
inclusive here, so.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, always learning stuff. Always learning. So we'll jump into seasonal patterns. White bass, they have a really neat kind of migratory seasonal pattern as far as fishing. So you can fish them all year round, but they do. There are strategies you can use throughout the year. This is a image of a reservoir in Texas. In Texas, we don't have natural lakes. The only natural lake we used to have was Caddo Lake, but every lake is a reservoir. It's man-made in Texas. So here's an image of a reservoir. You can see the upper end of the reservoir where the arrows are. That's where the water is coming in from the tributaries. Right here. So the water is flowing in, and then we have our reservoir, and this would be our impoundment or dam, and then it flows down the stream again. So and then the dark blue is going to be your deeper areas of water. So let's jump right in. So the first season, and these kind of overlap. There's definitely some overlap too, but they're schooling. They have schooling behaviors. So they're moving in the north end or areas that are opening up to the mouths of these tributaries, waiting for the spawning cues, the environmental cues. So they head up into these tributaries. So you can find them near the mouths of these tributaries. And Bob, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Well, I mean, not all of them go up to tributaries. Okay, what happens is that a lot stay back in the lake. You know, I live on Lake Richland Chambers, and as I was telling Adam earlier, I go up I-45 in the springtime, and I always see people fishing the banks of the river that flow, or the creek that flows in, which is Chambers Creek, and they're fishing for sand bass, obviously. But still, there's still a lot that stay inside the lake. I mean, the fish hang around the humps in those areas. They like to get the shad and drive them. And we'll talk about it later, but drive them up, and that's how they feed on them. But I find that there's as many in the lake as there is going up the river, I think. I mean, I don't know. I've never fished the rivers, but I know that the lake fishing never really slows down from springtime through summer. So, that make any sense?
Yeah, and so you mentioned hump. What is a hump? Is that just a?
Well, okay, if you have a fish finder, a depth finder, as you trace the bottom, the bottom goes up and goes down, and over and up and down, and those are what I call humps. Okay, they're undulations underwater that rise up, okay, and then have a sloping side, and the fish will hang on those sides, okay? And when the shad come in, they want to drive those shad up that hump towards the surface, okay? And that's when they start feeding on them, because they're a schooling fish, as you said. They if you catch one sand bass, you're going to catch more sand bass, because there's more than one there. They travel in a school. So does that help?
Yeah, great, thank you. All right, moving on to early spring and the spring. This is the time, I've heard it mention like the Super Bowl of fishing in Texas, the Great White Bass Spawning Run. They occurs when generally water temperatures reach 55 degrees. I've heard different things about that. And there's also additional environmental factors that may come into play, the length of day, and then the flow in these tributaries. So once they hit that cue, the males will go first. They're called scouts, and then you'll see them. So they'll go up, they'll start to swim up into these tributaries, and they are voracious feeders. It's very fun when you hit a school. And I did leave some white bass. There are, and Bob, what I looked at or read, they don't know why some stay behind.
I know.
So some will migrate and some will stay behind the lake. Do you have any?
No, no, that's beyond me. I mean, it's really nature thing, I'm sure, but my guess, it has something to do with the flow of the water. The higher the flow, the more oxygenated, the more they're going to want to go that way. That's all I can think of. That's just my cursory thought, because obviously the more oxygenated the water, the more life it sustains. So I don't know.
Well, and so a general rule is, when those temperatures hit 55 degrees, or there's an old saying, when the red buds bloom,
Right.
Which I saw the red buds bloom. It seems like it gets earlier every year, but that was early February, and I just wonder if that was knocked back from the weather we had,
Yeah.
if that's throwing it off. But I typically think mid-February to early March, really start to get your gear ready
If you're going to fish
for the run.
Definitely, if you're going to fish a run, that's definitely the time.
So during the run, and Bob had mentioned this, I didn't know that, but yeah, I mean, during this time, you can catch them in the lake as well, be quite successful. It is pretty exciting when they're heading down those skinny channels up along these tributaries, and they're schooling, and people catching their 25 daily bag limit within no time. So the males, when they're getting ready for the spawn or heading up, they are voracious feeders. And so what's interesting too about the spawning, the males will come up first, they act as scouts, and they'll wait for the females. When the females find a nice, open, shallow area, they prefer clean gravel and sand, they'll extrude millions of eggs, and there will be the males that will surround them and fertilize the eggs with their milt, and then they'll land on the bottom. They'll hatch in a couple of days, and then they'll feed with the ultimate goal of heading back into the reservoir or moving downstream the tributaries. So the warmer months, May and September, they're moving about in these reservoirs, feeding in schools for bait fish, and then staying and moving to deep water where there's structures, with structure as water warms up. And then Bob, I'm going to go ahead and move on. I'm going to, and then you'll be up as far as the equipment, and then let me know if I need to go back to any slides.
No, that's fine.
And then we'll close off with the fall. As the water cools, you can locate schools in deep water near structure. And maybe, or Bob, you may be able to comment to this. I just feel like it's pretty successful all year round.
Exactly. But it's successful in the early morning and the late evening. And we'll talk about that. So let's kind of just talk real quick about lures and things. The lake I live on, Richland Chambers, lures like the slab that imitate a shad are excellent. Okay. This is a silver one. There's gold, there's yellow. Okay. And these are fished when you find a school of fish, you basically will let your line down, hit bottom, reel up 2 times, and then just start pumping your rod up and down, up and down. And normally as that bait flutters going down is when they'll hit it. And my favorite reel, I'm more of an old-time bass fisherman, so I like the bait caster, okay? And this one has a lure on it that also works well trolling or casting, okay? But your push button is not to be forgotten. It's an excellent reel as well for fishing. And this one has a slab on it here that's a blue and silver. I don't know if you can see that. Okay, but those are good. And again, these are the kind, when you fish a slab like that, you're basically letting that hit the bottom, reel up, then you start pumping it up and down, okay? So, and the other is, of course, your spinning reel, okay? And these can be the most fun because normally you can use lightweight and this happens to have a 6-foot pole rod on it. The other one's had 6'6", but you can fish whatever you like. This one's got 8-pound test on it, again, which is a good number for sand bass. And if you're a fly fisherman, you can use a fly rod as well with what's called Clouser minnows. And I won't get into that now, but one of the things, as I said, you know, these slabs, and again, this one here, you can see is yellow and orange, and this one's got a fish imitation. These work great when you find a school of fish. Now, if you're in a boat and you want to troll, you know, bombers like this work well, okay? Depending on how deep you're going is how big the lip is, and the instructions on the packet will tell you that. Here's another one. This is a shad color, which is blue with a white belly on it. And again, I fish those with a friend of mine in the summertime a lot of times when it's hot, and we fish around areas where we know there usually is sand bass. But the best thing is to look for the birds, okay? In our lake and most lakes, when the sand bass start to school, they will basically come around humps in the lake. And if you have a depth finder, that will help. And what they'll do is they'll force those shad up to the surface, and then they'll start feeding on them. And what will happen is the seagulls will see that, and you'll start seeing seagulls dive bombing into the water, grabbing shad. And that is a perfect time to get your boat to that area, because I've had almost a ½ acre of lake start bubbling and boiling with fish, okay? Because they start a feeding frenzy, and every cast you're going to catch a fish. One of the secrets my friend keeps telling me is that, and it kind of works, if you let your slab or your bomber, whichever you're fishing with, sink lower than 3 or 4 feet, you'll catch bigger fish, because usually the bigger fish stay closer to the bottom than the smaller fish. Not sure if that's 100% true, but I have caught bigger fish by letting it fall. The other thing is where I live is that we have a mayfly hatch 4 or 5 times a year. And when these mayfly hatches start, literally my boat dock is covered with these hexagenia, they're called. And I'll take a hose, I'll spray them off into the water, and the water will start bubbling. And immediately, if I throw a lure in, I'm going to catch a sand bass. Okay, so there's a lot of way. But if you're fishing in a lake, look for the structure. In other words, as I said, the humps that come up where the fish will, and you'll see them hanging to the side of those. And the other thing is that I find, at least here, that if I get out on the lake in the summertime by 6:30, that's the best time, because by 10 o'clock it's over with. Okay, the fish have gone deeper, and then they're not coming back up until like 5 or 6 till dusk in the evening. Okay, and then I mean you can catch as many as you caught in the morning. So it's kind of an interesting time. Now guides, of course, have their certain holes that they can fish every day or whatever, but that's what I find to be the easiest way, is usually early in the morning, and just before dusk in the evening, the sun goes down, and you look for the humps and structure in the water. Questions?
Bob, and reminder, please drop questions in the chat.
So, okay, there's somebody asked the length and weight of recommended slabs. I really don't have that. Unfortunately, I just look for this one happens to be, I can tell you exactly. This slab is 2 1/4 inches long, and it's 3/4 of an inch wide. Okay. That's really the size. I mean, you can use smaller ones. You can use ones with spinners on them, but I find that the silver, or even this fish color one here that's got gills on it, if you can see the red here, and this one is a little, they're really about the same size, 2 1/4. That answer your question, I hope?
Hey, Bob, and you mentioned structure, and you so what about like docks and piers? Do you find that to be good
No.
structure?
I mean, they come around my dock only when I have a Hexagenia hatch. Okay. I mean, I can catch sand bass onesie twosies once in a while, but they're not like crappie or black bass that want to come to a dock for structure, for shade, or whatever. Sand bass are totally different. Yeah, as far as that goes, you really have to know the lake, and you can buy the topographic maps of the lake and find out where those humps are and where those areas are, where there's hill. I say humps, they're hills basically underwater. Yeah, the other thing is I mean, if you're going to fish a lake more than one time, the best thing is to get a guide the first time and let him show you where he goes and catches fish, and then just kind of duplicate that yourself. I mean, guides aren't, they're going to tell you, they want you to catch fish. So you're going to go out and catch fish with them, then come back out yourself if you have a boat and you know the areas to go. And most guides aren't very protected. They're pretty nice guys, really. At least on this lake, I know. So somebody asked, how about the rivers such as I've never fished the San Gabriel. I don't know. I would say if it leads into a major body of water, then I'd be fishing that area down there during the springtime.
I do know, yeah, the San Gabriel is a nice spot to catch white bass during the run.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
I'm going to share my screen, and we'll kind of talk about what to use during the spawning run. And Bob, if you have anything, please feel free to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me see here.
Yeah, the MEPs are great lures as well. Someone asked bucktails. Yes. I mean, all kinds of, and I have. Well, I've got several of those. Something like this works great. Okay. And I've got a yellow one here. All right, I'm gonna just throw my whole thing out here. You can see the different color ones.
What size are those? Those are quarter ounce?
I'm gonna guess yes, they are. I don't know off the top of my head. I can tell you that the weight itself on them is 1 1/4 inches. So I'll say they're quarter to maybe 3/8.
Yeah, and I'm not very exacting. I just kind of look at it. if that's the size of fish I'm looking at catching, just kind of, and buy a couple different ones. Yeah, so we'll kind of move into the spawning run fishing methods and equipment. So during the time when the males and females head up into the rivers like San Gabriel and the tributaries from these large reservoirs to fertilize their eggs. And so what I have found and read is keep it simple. You know, it's really not, when they are feeding, they're voracious. So cast where the action is. And Bob had shown a spinning reel, rod and reel, really anything 10 pounds or less is fine.
Someone asked about a fly rod, and I just put a 5 or 6 weight rod would work perfect. You'd have a lot of fun. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Adam.
No, thank you. And there is actually going to be an online white bass fly fishing class March 5th, and I'm going to go over that at the very end. Kira Kwam, who's actually with us right now, she will be co-instructing with Pat Vanek. So if you're interested in fly fishing for white bass, that class is available, and we'll show you how to sign up for that as well. So thank you. Spin cast, you know, spinning, bait caster, so whatever you're most comfortable with. Some nice light line. Artificial lures mimic what they eat. So we have 2 types of shad. We have a gizzard and a threadfin. So they look like silvery minnows, bait fish. So I love the inline spinners on the very left bottom. That's what I caught mine on. And those are Mepps, Panther Martins, whatever brand you like, but 1/8 to 1/4 ounce inline spinner should work very well. And then I was reading about these jig head with the plastic tail. These curly tails work pretty well. I don't typically use those, but they are highly recommended in the forums.
Those work great around my boat dock for crappie in the springtime.
And then a crankbait. So as you were talking about, Bob, kind of that cast out, let it hit the bottom, and then kind of move it up and down. One that looks like a shad, kind of a 1/8, 1/4 ounce. All different types have worked really well too. And then crawfish, they do feed on crustaceans as well. So any artificial, a hard plastic to your right, the crankbait, a 1/8 ounce or 1/4 ounce, or a soft plastic with a jig head, I've heard works really well. I haven't personally used these types of lures, but highly recommended out there. And then, so live bait, this is what I have found as far as you can use crawfish, you can also use shad, use live bait. It seems like to me on the right, as far as where you want to hook the shad is through the mouth or near the tail, because that allows them to be more free, so they can move naturally instead of being back hooked, which I have grown up typically using the back hook method.
Why?
Just it's just old habits.
Yep.
I need to change my habits and look at things. Yeah, so this is a learning.
No, and I've switched to the lip hook actually. When my grandkids are here, that's what we do. Yeah.
And so that works well.
Yep. Yes, it does. Yeah. Because they're going to take the fish from behind. Okay. So I mean, usually they're not going to take it from the. Well, I could be wrong. They may take it from the front too, because that way the dorsal fin's hung down. So.
Do you find it, particularly with white bass, if you are using live bait, do you think just the regular J kind of long shank hook is is
Yeah,
fine.
well, I use a snell hook, okay, whenever I fish for either sand bass or and we're mostly fishing for crappie then, we catch sand bass by mistake, but the snell hook has got the monofilament already on it. You know what I'm talking about, Adam?
Hmm.
Okay, so I've always used snell hooks because they're just easier to use and easier to hook onto your line, and it actually keeps the fish away from the line to some extent because it's got like 4 to 6 inches of monofilament before the hook. So
Okay. So white bass is a game fish. There's a statewide length and daily bag limit. The minimum length is 10 inches. To keep, you can keep up to 25 in one day. I have not found any statewide exceptions. Bob, do you know of any?
no, I mean, length is 10 inches. No.
And what it, if you don't know what we're talking about, we have statewide. So for all, so white bass, across state, we have a statewide length and daily bag limit. Some water bodies have different rules for some species, like largemouth bass is one that has maybe different length or
Depending on the
slot
weight, yeah.
limit. And so that's what we're talking about. You can find all that information on the Outdoor Annual app. You can have it on your phone, or you can look up it online. I do highly recommend it to, if you don't have it, download the Texas Parks and Wildlife Outdoor Annual app on your phone. I was going through it today. It is fantastic.
So let me back up one thing.
Sure.
A best practice is to be able, a friend of mine I went trolling with, on every area he had a pole on his boat, he had a piece of tape that was 10 inches wide. So when you caught a sand bass, you could measure it immediately and then release it without messing around. And the other thing I forgot to show you, one of the things you should have is pliers and forceps in your boat, okay? Or fishing from shore, it doesn't matter. When you catch a sand bass on a treble hook, it is not fun trying to get all those hooks out of the fish. So the forceps and the pliers help you do that. So you can get the fish back in the water quickly if it's not big enough, and it will survive. So that's really one of the things you got to think about is, you know, when you get into a school of fish, you may have 2 or 3 people in your boat and you all hook up at the same time. You can't be passing around a ruler to measure the fish. So somewhere on your craft, have slots that are, and just pieces of tape do it, 10 inches long. So, okay, that was it.
Thank you. I'm reading the chat.
Oh, okay, I didn't see.
No,
Uh-oh.
somebody caught me. I adapted this PowerPoint from my rainbow trout class, so it was still on there. I missed one. So we have 7 minutes left. We will definitely let you out at 7 o'clock. I want to show you this real quick. If you are 17 years or older, you need a fishing license, freshwater fishing license to catch fish legally in the state. You can do all that right on your app. So the Outdoor Annual app, it's right here.
I'll tell you, that thing is great.
Right there. I click on it. It has, I can buy my license through the app, and it will, it holds the license too. It can also show me when I bought it, when it's active. I can also look at freshwater fish, all the limits, click on that. And then it says where to fish. I was looking through this today. It's fantastic. So you can look at, it can find your location. So here, and you can click on any spot in the state and it tells you what species are there. So if you're looking for a new spot for white bass, you can find places on your Outdoor Annual app. Bob, did you want to mention something?
No, just come to Lake Richard and Chambers. You'll catch sand bass. Trust me.
Stay at Bob's house. I'll include your address tomorrow.
Yeah, all inclusive. Yeah, let's go into that. But no, seriously, to walk any other lakes, and I know that guides are not cheap, but if you want to learn a lake to begin with, that's probably the best thing to do. If you can get two guys together, and some of them take more than two guys in a boat, so you guys could split it up, or ladies, and really have some fun, and then learn the lake a little bit. So, Adam, you're smiling. What did I do?
Oh, no, you're perfect. You're perfect. So we'll finish up with the Texas Fishing Resources. So the Outdoor Annual app, we have a fishing events calendar. This I mentioned will be on the follow-up email. I will send you a document with links to all these, so you don't have to write all these down in search form. I also have documents that talk about white bass, fishing white bass in Texas. I will save, there have been some great resources that have been shared on the chat. I will save the chat and share those as well. And then if you don't know about our Texas Parks and Wildlife lease public access, I'll include that too. I would definitely, if you're not familiar with that, those are river access sites across the state that are free to access. That there's been it's a private public partnership where there's a Texas Parks and Wildlife reached out to these private landowners, and they get a little bit of money, and they allow the public to fish or access the river through their property. So very cool. I'll also include information about becoming an Angler Ed instructor, like Bob, how he got certified. I highly encourage you to look at that if you want to learn more about fishing, or you have an interest in outreach or volunteering. What else, Bob? Am I missing anything? I'm looking at the questions here.
I was too. I mean, I think we've answered them all, hopefully. Any more questions? Please ask.
And again, I will include, there is a online white bass fly fishing class Friday, March 5th. It was rescheduled from February 17th. So I will include that link on the document tomorrow. So if you're interested about learning how to fly fish for white bass, please look at that as well.
Yeah, there were some good tips on cleaning the fish too, as far as trying to get that gamey taste out. So if you can read those chats, one gentleman say the more you wash them, the better they'll be as well. But taking that red strip out really helps.
Well, it looks like we are good to go. That's all I have. Again, please look for the follow-up email with all these resources, including the class that's coming up next week. What month is it? Yeah, next week on Friday, March 5th from 7 to 8 p.m. Fly fishing for white bass. You can reach out to me if you have questions, further questions about white bass. And I just want to thank Bob. Thank you again.
No, my pleasure.
Couldn't do it without you. And Heather, thank you so much for bouncing and moderating the chat and the tech behind the scenes. So we really hope you guys learned something new and inspired you to throw a line out. Y'all have a good night.
Yes, take care. And as they say, keep a straight line.